Everyone said I must have done something incredibly good in a past life to find such a wonderful husband in Ethan. After the accident, I lost partial sensation in my legs. He sold off his assets to pay for my treatment and even moved us to Harmony for recuperation. Even after a year of medication, there was no improvement. In fact, the condition had even spread throughout my lower body, but he never thought of giving up. Nora, don't be afraid. I'll stay with you until you recover. I was so touched I was overwhelmed, even considering giving up treatment to lessen Ethan's burden. Until that day, I accidentally overheard him on the phone with someone. Don't worry, Skylar, after a year of medication, her legs are getting worse and worse. Just bring your parents. You have nothing to worry about. I'll make sure they never discover that Nora is their biological daughter, the one they've been searching for all these years. With a clink, the glass shattered, and the splashing water soaked the blanket on my legs. What's wrong, Nora? Ethan immediately knelt, grabbing my trembling hand. Was the water too hot? I thought about the strange call I'd accidentally overheard that morning. Looking at the medication in my hand, unable to swallow it, I could only manage a weak smile. Ethan, I don't want to take it. How can you not take your medication? Ethan gently rubbed my head with a helpless smile. If you don't take your medication properly, how will you ever stand up again? My tears instantly gushed out. When I first injured my legs, the doctor said that with regular training, I would recover quickly. To get better sooner and not trouble Ethan, I stubbornly endured the excruciating pain in my calves, leaning on the windowsill to practice walking on the days he wasn't around. But later, Ethan had someone buy the most advanced medication from abroad to treat my leg injury. And I never stood up again. Ethan, I cried, reaching for his hand. I want to dance. I want to stand up. You know how important my legs are to me. I grew up in an orphanage and couldn't afford a teacher. I learned ballet by secretly following dance troupes, stumbling my way through. When the accident happened, I was on my way to the airport, set to go to Australia with my dance troupe for my very first performance. I know all about it. Ethan gently kissed away the tears on my face, his voice filled with tenderness. That's why Nora can't throw a tantrum. Be a good girl, take your medication. He lowered his head and kissed my lips, with utmost tenderness, leaving me momentarily stunned, but the next second, a bitter taste exploded in my mouth, and my neck was forcefully raised. Before I could react, the pill had already slid down my throat. Through tear-filled eyes, I thought I saw a hint of mockery in Ethan's gaze, but his voice remained gentle. Good girl, take your medication. Everything will be all right. I shivered, fiercely shaking off the warm hands on my legs. 3 days ago, Ethan said his patrons were coming to Harmony for a visit. The family are my benefactors. I must host them well, Ethan said, brushing a stray strand of hair from my forehead. So Nora, you need to be obedient, understand? I nodded. I won't cause you any trouble. Is there anything I need to do? But shook his head, pressing my hand. Nora, you need to stay quietly in the room. If the Marcus family knew my wife was disabled, they would definitely offer to help me. I owe them too much. I can't let them worry about my affairs anymore. So you absolutely mustn't let them know you're upstairs, understood? We were both children who grew up thanks to the kindness of benefactors, so I agreed without much thought. But that phone call today, ever since I could remember, I grew up in an orphanage. But not a day went by that I didn't want to find my parents. I rolled over, looking at Ethan's incredibly gentle face in the moonlight, but the dark clouds in my heart grew heavier. Ethan and I met in high school. 2 kids with no connections. We found warmth and support in each other, studying through college and then getting married. During the time I tore my meniscus from dancing, he carried me up and down 6 flights of stairs every day for rehabilitation, sweating as he cooked restorative broth for me, ensuring I had no lasting issues. How could he possibly harm me? But the next day, when Ethan handed me the white pills again, I kept my guard up. After he turned and left the room, I grabbed a tissue, spat the medication out of my mouth, and crumpled it into the trash can. My mind raced, trying to figure out how to avoid him and discreetly ask a doctor about my condition. I was gazing absently at the cactus on the windowsill when Ethan, holding a glass of water, stood behind me again without my knowing. Nora, he gave me a meaningful look. You're not being a good girl and taking your medication again. I instinctively shivered, following his gaze upwards. On top of the wardrobe, a security camera stared down at me. The dark lens was like a bottomless abyss. Fortunately, he didn't seem to suspect anything, because a month earlier, I had been subtly hinting that I wanted to give up treatment. Despite the constant flow of medication, My legs lost sensation day by day. To earn money for my treatment, Ethan did everything. He drove for a ride-sharing service at night and did manual labor at construction sites during the day. His clothes were faded, yet he bought me new dresses every month until that day. He accidentally got injured when goods spilled onto his shoulder. A rebar nearly pierced his chest. I scattered the medication across the floor, my hands trembling as I reached for the gauze on his shoulder. My voice hoarse. Ethan, I'm not doing this anymore. No more medication. Even if I can never dance again, I accept it. Ethan was incensed, gripping my wrist so tightly that the wound on his shoulder even started to bleed. Nora, are you insane? How can you not take your medication? Are you trying to kill me with worry? I sobbed uncontrollably in his arms. I just don't want you to be so tired anymore, Ethan. Just stay with me. Just stay with me properly. I wouldn't care if I was confined to a wheelchair for the rest of my life. That day, I cried myself unconscious in Ethan's arms. He pressed his lips together, but didn't nod in agreement to my suggestion. He only watched me take my medication more closely afterward. I had been trapped in this two-story cottage for too long, no longer able to discern whether my body was truly getting better or worse, or who the man sleeping beside me truly was. The family, whom he mentioned and who might be my biological parents, were my last hope. The day the Marcus family arrived, the weather was beautiful. I was locked in the upstairs room by Ethan, clutching the bedsheet as I struggled to sit up, then quietly pulled open the curtain just a crack. In the soft spring light, I saw a well-dressed couple smilingly pat Ethan's shoulder. Then, with a loud "Ethan," a figure in pale pink launched herself into my husband's arms. I've missed you so much. The girl's smile was dazzling. The soundproofing in this two-story cottage wasn't great. The sounds of laughter and joy drifted up incessantly from downstairs. Every few minutes, a girl's sweet laughter would intermingle with the sounds. I clutched the plain bread roll in my hand, now cold and hard, not understanding why she and Ethan wanted to prevent my parents from finding me. She should be my sister. I had secretly searched online. Mr. and Mrs. Marcus had a harmonious relationship. Their son had joined the company early to inherit the family business, and their daughter, though still in school, already had company shares. Apart from losing an older daughter years ago, there were no other misfortunes or scandals. It felt as if something was pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Just then, the door was gently pushed open. I squinted in the darkness and tentatively asked, "Ethan, is that you?" A woman's low chuckle came from the doorway. "You." Before I could finish, a bright light suddenly shone on my face, and I instinctively closed my eyes. "Nora?" She walked closer and pressed my leg. "So, you really can't move at all, Skylar?" I clutched the blanket tightly, my heart pounding as if it would burst. She gave a small a silent acknowledgement, and sat on the bed, reaching out to touch my leg. A young dancer of exceptional talent, the lead in her first performance at the Arts Center, the youngest principal dancer of the future. She tilted her head, reciting the media's old praise of me. "Nora, if you had gone to that performance, your face would have been famous by now. What do you want?" My mouth felt dry, and I instinctively wanted to escape, but my numb legs held me captive. She let out a scoff of derision. "Ethan and I grew up together. He's never refused me anything I've wanted, but he's your husband. In name only." Skylar's tone was as cold as ice. "I don't trust him." As soon as her words fell, a flash of silver, in the darkness, I only saw her lift the blanket and place something on my leg. What are you doing?" My fingertips trembled, and I screamed internally, wanting to flee from her. Skylar didn't speak, just quietly watched my face. After half a minute, she pulled the item back into her lap. "It seems your legs truly are useless." "Perfect, Nora." She leaned closer, revealing a malicious grin. "Just die alone in some corner where no one can see you." My mind went blank. I instinctively reached out to touch the spot she had just touched. It was a sticky sensation. My arm felt weak as I tremblingly held my hand up in the moonlight. The moment I saw it clearly, my heart almost stopped. My hands were covered in bright red blood. When I opened my eyes again, Ethan was gripping my face, his expression filled with fury, but his voice was kept low. "Nora, what are you trying to do? Are you yelling so loudly you're afraid no one will hear?" It was then I realized I must have briefly lost consciousness, as it always had severe hemophobia. "Ethan?" The fear of death overcame my suspicions of Ethan. I pulled back the blanket to show him the wound on my leg, crying and clutching his hand. "She stabbed me with a knife, Ethan. I've lost so much blood." Please take me to the hospital. I'm going to die. My thighs had many arteries. I didn't know where Skylar had stabbed me, and my hands and feet turned ice cold with fright. It's just a small scratch. You won't die. Ethan cast a cursory glance at my thigh, then tossed the bedside first aid kit beside me. There's gauze inside. Deal with it yourself. No, no. My lower body, which had no sensation, was inexplicably aching as if being cut by knives. Ethan, I'm in so much pain. Please take me to the hospital. Enough. He squeezed my hand forcefully. Nora, you can't even feel the pain. Take care of it yourself. I have other matters to attend to. Your voice was too loud just now. Mr. Marcus and Mrs. Marcus will become suspicious. Ethan, have you found the first aid kit? A gentle yet anxious male voice called from downstairs. Skylar is in too much pain. Did you hear that? Ethan's gaze at me held a hint of impatience. It's all because of you that Skylar had to cut herself to cover for you, Skylar. This time it was a woman's voice. Ethan, come down quickly. We have to take Skylar to the hospital. The child has had hemophobia since she was little. She just fainted. Ethan, coming. Ethan's chest rose and fell rapidly twice. He no longer spared me a glance, running down the stairs in a few quick steps. Skylar, Skylar. The woman's tearful voice drifted up, and my heart instantly ached as if being twisted by a knife. If she truly was my mother, would she also hold me with such worry? I tried with all my strength to scream, to attract those downstairs, but I had no strength left in my body. I could only hear a clunk, and the entire house fell silent, and I lost consciousness in the increasingly cold darkness. When I woke up, it was already bright outside, and the wound on my leg seemed to have been treated, but my mouth was stuffed with a handkerchief, and my hands were tightly bound to the headboard. Thank you for your trouble, Ethan. A strange male voice came from outside the door. Ever since Eve went missing, my wife's health hasn't been good. She only got a bit better after we adopted Skylar. Skylar's features resembled my wife's in some ways, and she also has hemophobia like her. My wife truly cherished her like her own daughter. I understand. Ethan's voice came from outside the door. It's good for Auntie to rest for a few extra days after being so scared yesterday. No, I don't want to. Skylar's wailing voice joined in. Shh. Mr. Marcus's voice grew sterner. Mommy is still resting. Keep your voice down, Daddy. I don't want to be here anymore. Skylar, chastised, sounded a bit aggrieved. I think this place has bad vibes. I'm injured. And Mommy's sick with fright, Daddy. Let's leave quickly. I want to go to Silver Peak to see the snow-capped mountains. Marcus looked at the girl shaking his sleeve, his brow slightly furrowed. His wife always treated Skylar as if she were their lost biological daughter. But every time he saw Skylar acting spoiled, his heart couldn't help but ache. Here he was, doting on another's child with endless affection. But what if his own daughter was suffering somewhere out of sight? All right, after all, she was a child he had doted on for years. So Marcus couldn't resist rubbing her head to comfort her. If you don't like it here, well, leave as soon as Mommy wakes up. The voices outside gradually died down. Inside the room, I stared at the white ceiling, my head spinning. No wonder Skylar didn't want me to reunite with my parents. No wonder she was so cruel the first time she saw me. She wasn't my sister. She was the one who had taken my place. Around noon, Ethan came in and fed me a cup of warm milk. I'm sorry, Nora. He lowered his head and kissed my wrist, reddened by the ropes, his eyes full of guilt, but with no intention of untying me. Why, Ethan? I grabbed his shirt, forcing him to meet my gaze. Why? Why are you doing this to me? I'm sorry. His voice was hoarse, but without Skylar, I might have died in the orphanage long ago. She hurt you. I'll make it up to you. Ethan pulled me into his arms and kissed my eyes. Baby, I know it's not your leg that hurts, but your heart that's upset. Once she leaves, I'll take you to the hospital, okay? Once your wound heals, I'll take you to the best cosmetic surgery department to ensure not a single scar remains on your leg. Ethan, I was silent for a moment, then asked him, are you still giving me the medication today? His pinky finger trembled almost imperceptibly, but his face remained as gentle as ever. Of course, you have to take it. Be a good girl, baby. I'll go get your medication. I leaned back on the pillow, closing my eyes to hide the intense hatred in them, but tears streamed out uncontrollably if my plan succeeded. I looked at the glass Ethan had forgotten to take away in his haste, and my gaze gradually hardened. Ethan, I won't let you get away with this. A noisy commotion came from downstairs. I knew the Marcus family was probably preparing to leave. My hand, gripping the glass, was cut by my anxious fumbling. I stifled the stinging pain in my palm and sped up the process of cutting the ropes. The family might not believe my one-sided story, but they had been looking for their daughter for so many years. If I insisted, they would definitely take me for a DNA test, as long as I could make myself appear before them. All right, Ethan, we're leaving now. Skylar's cheerful voice drifted up. I looked at the small piece of rope still attached, my heart burning with anxiety. Then I closed my eyes, braced myself with my arms, and slammed myself off the bed. The rope finally snapped under the force of my body weight. I struggled to push myself up on my arms, clawing at the carpet toward the door. In just a few pushes, my arms were excruciatingly sore. I wasn't used to moving with my arms because Ethan had never made me endure such hardship. Wherever I wanted to go, he would carry me. Mr. and Mrs. Marcus's farewells came clearly to my ears the moment I laboriously pushed myself up and twisted the doorknob. No, this won't do. I felt a wave of panic. I still had to crawl to the top of the stairs, then crawl down to the first floor. I was going to miss them. Ethan, take care of yourself. Call us if you need anything. Along with that sentence, I heard the soft click of the front door closing. Despair flooded my senses. Wait, I gasped, looking at the stairs before me, and closed my eyes anyway. It couldn't get any worse than this. I covered my head with my hands and rolled myself down. Under the force of gravity, I smashed the vase at the top of the stairs, and my back scraped against the shattered ceramic. I screamed in pain, but I had no time to worry about my back, which was tearing apart with pain. I struggled with all my might to crawl towards the wooden front door, but the front door opened by itself. I looked at Ethan, who stood stunned in the doorway, and closed my eyes in despair, thinking I would probably die here alone. Just as Skylar said, Nora, Ethan was stunned by the blood everywhere. He didn't understand how Nora had managed to crawl here. Don't worry about me, Ethan. I lay on my back on the floor, self-destructively pressing on the wound on my back. Don't worry about me. But the next second, the front door was suddenly pushed open again. Ethan, your aunt forgot. Marcus was startled by the mess on the floor, and it took him 2 seconds to notice that there was also a girl lying in a pool of blood. The girl looked at him as if she had found a lifeline, her breathing quickening. I looked at the strange yet inexplicably familiar face before me, my vision blurred with urgency, but I couldn't say anything. Would he think I was a liar? Would he think I was crazy? My mind was a chaotic mess, and all the words I'd prepared vanished completely, but the man opposite quickly walked over, raising his hand as if to touch my face. Eve, his eyes were red-rimmed, and his voice trembled violently. I'm your dad. When my vision returned to clarity, the strong smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. I endured the pain all over my body, laboriously turning my head, wanting to see where I was, but the moment I moved, someone rushed over from beside me, cupping my face and whispering, sobbing, Eve, you're awake. Eve, do you recognize Mommy? Mommy? I lowered my head slightly and seeing that face, instantly understood why Mr. Marcus recognized me as his daughter at first glance. Mrs. Marcus and we really looked alike, so much so that I thought I was seeing myself 20 years in the future. Mommy, I whispered, my eyes welling up with tears. Mrs. Marcus could no longer hold back. She collapsed on me, sobbing uncontrollably. She wept for my disappearance, for my legs, for my scraped arms and my ravaged back. Marcus stepped forward and hugged her, his eyes unusually red as he looked at me. Daddy, I gently tried to smile. The man's handsome, curving eyebrows, extended his broad hand and gently rubbed my head. It felt as warm as I had imagined a father's hand to be. Baby, we didn't know you married Ethan. Mrs. Marcus explained to me through sobs, and we didn't know you injured your leg. Why didn't Ethan tell us he got married? If we had met you earlier, how could we have let you? She trailed off, then hugged me and started crying again. Eve, Daddy and Mommy will cure you. Marcus looked down at me. Tomorrow, we'll take you home. Your brother found out you were back last night and was so happy he didn't sleep a wink. And your sister. Marcus paused, then continued. She went out for breakfast. I'll introduce you when she gets back. Even though she's our adopted child, she's very obedient and sweet. She kept your mother company all the years you were gone. When she spoke of Skylar, Mrs. Marcus's mood noticeably brightened, and she talked about this and that. One moment she was talking about Skylar's grades at school, the next about her piano competitions, then about an award she won for her clothing designs. I pursed my lips, eventually leaning into her arms, not saying a single word I had misunderstood. How could I, a child found after 20 years, expect them to believe my words and think that the daughter they doted on since childhood had been harming me all along? Skylar returned with Ethan. When she pushed open the door, her eyes were red-rimmed, and she stood shyly behind Ethan. "Come here, Skylar, Mrs. Marcus gently extended a hand to her. "Come say hello to your sister." Skylar then took small steps closer, clutching my blanket, and whispered, "Hello, sister. I'm Skylar." Her voice still trembled, as if I wasn't a disabled person covered in wounds lying in bed, but a vengeful ghost come to claim her life. Morning was peak visiting time, and the doctor came by several times. The couple constantly fussed over me, while Skylar stood alone in the corner, tears welling up in her eyes, threatening to fall. It wasn't until past 10 o'clock, after all the necessary examinations were done and the ward finally quieted down, that Mr. Marcus spoke to me about flying back to Metropolis City tomorrow. "We chartered a private jet just for you, fearing you'd be uncomfortable. It was a bit tricky to get a last-minute flight path approved. That's why we couldn't go back today. Just bear with it a little longer. And when we get home, Daddy will find you the best doctor." I smiled and nodded. "Thank you, Daddy." Skylar seemed unable to hold back any longer. She took a few steps forward and clutched Mrs. Marcus's sleeve. "Mommy," after only 2 words, her tears fell like a broken string of pearls. Skylar, can I still go back with you? Now that you have sister, do you still want me?" Her last few words were lost in her sobs. Mrs. Marcus was shocked. She never imagined her younger daughter would think such a thing, and quickly pulled her into her arms to comfort her. "What nonsense are you talking about? You and your sister are both Mommy's daughters. Of course your sister likes you very much. Why wouldn't she let you come back?" Mrs. Marcus looked at me. "Eve, isn't that right?" I turned my head to look at Skylar in her arms, clearly seeing the mockery and triumph in her eyes. "Mommy," I chuckled softly, a chilling expression on my face. "I'm sorry, but I'm not Eve. My name is Nora." As soon as I said it, I regretted it a little. I was the one who needed the Marcus family's help now. It really wasn't appropriate to talk to Mrs. Marcus like that. What if she got angry and abandoned me? My heart sank. I was about to say something reassuring when I was pulled into a damp embrace. "Baby." Mrs. Marcus started crying again. I'm sorry. Don't be mad at Mommy. If you don't like the name Eve, then Mommy will call you Nora, okay?" Her eyes were full of hope as she looked at me. "Baby, you can't refuse to acknowledge Mommy." Mrs. Marcus was truly startled by the name Nora. Thinking her daughter didn't want to change her surname or forgive them, she barely noticed her adopted daughter, who was still clinging to her and whining. In the end, Mr. Marcus smoothed things over, saying they'd change my name to Nora once we got home. And he coaxed Skylar to take Mrs. Marcus out for something to eat. "Ethan, you should go rest too." Marcus pressed his brow and patted Ethan's shoulder. I finally had a chance to examine Ethan closely since waking up. Ethan was still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. His white shirt even had some bloodstains. His hair was disheveled. There were dark circles under his eyes, and stubble was growing on his chin. "Ethan stayed up all night watching over you. He just left for a bit to eat with Skylar." Marcus sighed, a hint of lingering fear in his voice. "It's a good thing you married him." I thought about that phone call and the mysterious white pills, forcibly suppressing the urge to tremble. "Yes, Daddy." I lowered my eyelashes to conceal the complex emotions in my eyes. "I'm very lucky." Marcus went out to discuss my transfer for tomorrow with the doctor, leaving just Ethan and me in the ward. We were silent for a while, and finally, I patted the edge of the bed and smiled at him. "Come here." Ethan sat down silently, staring into my eyes. After a long moment, he said, "What exactly do you know?" He had thought all night, convinced that Nora must have discovered something to risk her life climbing from the bedroom to the door, taking a desperate gamble to see the Marcus family. I smiled. "What do you think I should know?" "Mr. and Mrs. Marcus won't believe you." His gaze at me had lost its usual tenderness, replaced by sheer defensiveness. "They won't believe Skylar stabbed you with a knife. If you dare say that, they'll think you're intentionally trying to drive a wedge between them and Skylar." "I know." I nodded. No matter how upset or how indulgent the couple was with me now, it was only out of guilt. Between and me, I would surely be the one cast aside. Ethan let out a sigh of relief, then rubbed the corner of my forehead with the back of his hand, becoming the gentle husband once more. "It's good that you know Nora. I told you, this is Skylar's fault. If you let her go, I will compensate you." What about the medication? What medication? His hand instantly stiffened, and his pupils held a hint of fear. The medication I was taking, Ethan. I raised a hand to smooth out the wrinkles in his shirt. Was that really the medication you had someone buy to treat my legs? Ethan looked at me in disbelief, instinctively taking the steps back. You and Skylar had a connection long ago. I looked at him coldly. Skylar knew my identity long ago. She knew that if I successfully performed on stage, I would become famous across the country. Then, my face would surely be recognized by Mr. and Mrs. Marcus. That's why she made you drug me. She wanted me to never be able to stand again. She wanted me to never appear in public again for the rest of my life. Do you dare say there's a single lie in what I just said? His face was frighteningly pale, and the hand gripping the bedpost had lost all color. Nora? He closed his eyes and took 2 deep breaths. Yes. You guessed correctly, but you had me before, and now you have the Marcus family. What more could you possibly be dissatisfied with? When you were sick, I was utterly devoted to you, risking my life for money and wouldn't dare let you suffer the slightest hardship. Now you've been found by the Marcus family. Your legs will be cured, and in the future, you'll have even more than Skylar. Nora? He regained his composure and walked closer to touch my cheek. You're so smart. You must know that by leveraging the Marcus family's guilt, you can get everything you want. The medication is gone. I threw all the rest away. Your cell phone. He grabbed my hand, which was fumbling under the pillow, and squeezed it tightly. Don't bother looking. I took it long ago, precisely because I was afraid you'd try to record something. Baby, he gently brushed his lips against my cheek. You have nothing in the Marcus family. Until you recover, you can only rely on me to establish yourself within the Marcus family. You wouldn't cut off your own arm, would you? What said was absolutely right. I lowered my gaze to conceal the raging hatred within. If I told the Marcus family those words just now, they would only think I was mentally ill. On one side was the daughter they'd loved since childhood and the child they'd always supported. On the other, a biological daughter who felt like a stranger. Without evidence, they wouldn't believe me. When returned, I had just wiped away my tears. I looked up at him with a smile and called out, Daddy. I didn't show the slightest flaw, but's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. He instructed Ethan to go back and pack some necessities for me. After the ward door closed, he slowly stood before me. You cried. He bent his index finger and gently touched the subtly reddened corner of my eye. My wound hurts a little. I lowered my head, avoiding his scrutinizing gaze. No, Marcus said quietly after a second, his voice deep. You argued with Ethan. I looked up in surprise, meeting a pair of eyes filled with concern and sympathy, and was momentarily stunned. Eve, Nora? He knelt on one knee, taking my cold hand in his. I know that since Daddy and Mommy just got you back, you're not close to us, and you don't trust us, but we are your parents, after all. If you're feeling wronged, but is the child you've sponsored since he was little. I was usually polite with strangers, but today I couldn't help but repeatedly lose my temper. Would you really believe he made me feel wronged? Marcus fell silent. The fire in my heart grew hotter. I wanted to pull my hand away, but he held it firmly. Ethan is one of no fewer than 2,000 children I've sponsored, he suddenly said, very slowly. After you went missing, besides adopting Skylar, I also established 2 foundations specifically to provide support for children in orphanages, because I thought, what if some of that money happened to reach you, making your life a little better? I felt a soft, numb tingling in my heart, as if something had pricked it. Skylar was willing to be close to Ethan back then, so his relationship with our family naturally grew closer, Marcus said, raising his hand to rub my head. But he's just one of 2,000 children I've sponsored, while you are the treasure I've searched for 20 years. His words made my head buzz. When I regained awareness, I found myself leaning against my father's chest, his shirt drenched and disheveled from my crying. Then, in a surge of emotion, I sobbed and recounted everything I had just told Ethan. As listened, his expression gradually darkened, making me feel uncertain. It's all right if you don't believe me. I managed a weak smile, feeling foolish again. No, my father sighed, his brows deeply furrowed. It's just that, if what you're saying is true. My gaze was lowered, and I happened to see his tightly clenched fists. Red marks had appeared on the web between his thumb and forefinger. Nora, he placed his broad hand on my head again. What you've told me will take some time to investigate. You just believe me like that. I looked at him in disbelief. You're my daughter, he smiled. If I don't believe you, who can I believe? But what if I just don't like Skylar and made it all up? As soon as I said it, I wanted to cover my mouth, feeling I was really pushing my luck today, but my father's smile deepened, and he tapped my forehead with a bent finger. Then that means Nora is willing to be cheeky with me, isn't that even better? Besides, he scoffed softly, with a hint of pride, the only daughter of the Marcus family, just making up a story. If you hate Skylar, your mother and I will send her away, if you don't like Ethan anymore. I'll find a lawyer to arrange your divorce, Nora. His gaze at me was complex, filled with apology and tenderness. You just remember one thing, you are my daughter. You can do anything you want. Daddy and Mommy will always believe you. When the plane landed in Metropolis City, the wheelchair jolted as it passed through the jet bridge. I was just turning to talk to my mother, lost my balance, and instinctively braced myself with my thighs hiss. A faint ache pulls from where I pressed. I stared blankly at the blanket, vaguely recalling it was the spot where Skylar had stabbed me. Dad. I couldn't tell anyone else, so I suppressed my agitation and pulled my father close. My thigh wound, it just throbbed a little. He started, surprised, then immediately reacted. Taking my wheelchair from Mom, you take Skylar home first. I've scheduled Nora an appointment with a surgical specialist physician. I need to take her to the hospital now. So urgent? Mom looked at me, puzzled. Sweetheart, your brother is still waiting outside. Before she could finish, Dad had already scooped me into the car waiting on the tarmac. Through the window, I saw Skylar stamping her foot in a fit of pique. Ethan's gaze, heavy with emotion, flickered toward me before he lowered his head to take the suitcase from Mom. I couldn't help but let a smile spread across my face. So happy. Dad turned his head to look at me, very happy. Everything was out in the open. I had nothing to hide. Seeing them unhappy makes me happy. My words were bold and defiant, but Dad chuckled, patting my hand. Once the evidence is clear, Dad will make you even happier. During our 2 years in harmony, Ethan barely ever took me to the hospital. He'd said the medical conditions there weren't good, and I just needed to follow my previous doctor's orders and take my medication diligently, so I never truly knew if my leg was getting better or worse. After a thorough examination, the stern-faced chief specialist physician looked puzzled. He squatted down and gently massaged my thigh. It's nothing major. By rights, it should have healed long ago. Why is there still no sensation in your thigh? I glanced at my father, whose expression was grim, and pulled out the medication wrapped in tissue from my pocket. It was half a pill I'd secretly hidden during the days I was locked up. When Ethan wasn't paying attention, could you please check what kind of medication this is, and if long-term use might affect recovery? The specialist physician worked quickly. The report was delivered to our house the next day. I didn't know what exactly was written inside, only hearing the sound of something heavy smashing in Dad's home office. Skylar, who was clinging affectionately to Mom, looked up at the sound, her eyes wide with confusion. Did and Julian have a fight? Before she finished speaking, Julian, radiating an icy aura and looking terribly grim, came down from upstairs. I'd heard that Julian brought a motorcade to pick me up that day, with 20 assistants carrying luxury brand boxes lined up. More exaggerated than anything written in novels. I felt both grateful and awkward, unsure how to interact with this unfamiliar CEO brother, so I instinctively avoided his gaze as usual, but didn't let me off the hook this time. He cupped my face with one hand, making me look up at him. His eyes, filled with apology mixed with towering rage, made my heart tremble. Nora. His voice was terribly hoarse. You've suffered. I paused, then realized he must have seen the medication test report. I was about to ask something, but Julian strode away. This child. Mom frowned, soothing Skylar, who was startled beside her. Why is he talking so nonsensically? Husband, she said, seeing Dad come down, and waved with a smile. Skylar was just asking me, which school did the student who designed the piece we bought for her to compete in last year attend? Can we find her again to design one this year? Dad. Skylar's eyes sparkled as she ran forward. That dress last year sold so well at my studio. If we buy another piece from her to enter this year, we'll definitely. Smack. A harsh slap landed squarely on Skylar's face, nearly sending her tumbling down the stairs. Skylar knelt on the floor, her face filled with terror, tears streaming down as she was too stunned to utter a single word. What are you doing, Marcus? Mom rushed over, cradling Skylar protectively, and shouted, it's just buying a piece of art. We gave so much money, and that student was clearly willing. Why are you hitting her? Money, Dad scoffed, his eyes on Skylar chilling to the bone. You gave her too much money. She's probably so confused she doesn't know what to buy anymore. What do you mean? Mom froze, looking at Skylar in her arms, What did she buy? Skylar stiffened, stared at by her adoptive father's venomous glare. What had she done that was discovered? Was it keeping a young model at the private club? Or hiring someone to write her thesis? Could it be? She instinctively looked at Nora, who sat serenely smiling on the central sofa, and shivered. No, it absolutely couldn't be that. She had covered her tracks well. Marcus would never find anything besides, wasn't there a scapegoat to take the fall for her? Ethan took me for a follow-up hospital visit. As I got into the car, my sleeve slipped, revealing a sparkling Cartier bracelet on my wrist. New one again? Ethan's gaze lingered. Yesterday it was still a ruby. It is, I smiled, raising my hand for him to see. I don't know what's gotten into Julian, but jewelry has been flowing into my room like a river these past few days. His eyes darkened slightly, following me. You really did suffer hardships. I choked, suddenly recalling how, years ago, he'd gone without breakfast for 3 months just to buy me a silver pendant, eventually collapsing from low blood sugar and being rushed to the hospital. Ethan, thinking of the past, my heart softened a little, and I decided to give him another chance. Why exactly did you give me that medication? Was forcing you, or what are you talking about? Ethan interrupted with a laugh. What medication? And what does it have to do with Skylar? He glanced at the driver in front, then whispered close to my ear, Nora, that's all in the past. Don't torment yourself with it. I smiled, closing my eyes to hide the scorn within them. Whether it's in the past or not, we'll know soon enough. My voice was very soft. Ethan didn't hear, but he frowned without pressing for more. It wasn't until we pushed open the front door that he realized something was clearly wrong. Dad's face was ashen, Julian wore a cold smirk, and Mom clutched her chest, eyes filled with tears. Shying away from the person kneeling in the center of the room as if she were a plague, it was Skylar. I turned my head and saw Ethan's pupils constrict instinctively. Sweetheart. Mom saw me, stumbled forward, and embraced me, sobbing uncontrollably. Sweetheart. My sweetheart. Her eyes were unfocused from crying. She couldn't speak. Ethan. Dad looked at Ethan and actually smiled. A while ago, the doctor analyzed the medication Nora had been taking and found it wasn't for treating her leg, but a nerve-paralyzing drug. This medication, Skylar gave it to you, didn't she? Ethan trembled. After a few seconds of silence, an unprecedented resolve entered his eyes. Yes, I asked Skylar to buy it for me. He knelt, shuffling a few steps forward to Dad. I just loved Nora too much and didn't want her to leave me. I lost my head. Bullshit. Julian lunged, landing a punch on his face that made Ethan grunt and spit out a bloodied tooth. Dad, it really wasn't me, Skylar cried, reaching for Dad's pants. Ethan said he needed this medication. I didn't know what he was going to do. If I had known he was going to use it on my sister, I would have broken my own leg before giving it to him. Is that so? Marcus smiled, a hint of tenderness in his eyes. If you had known, you would have broken your own leg? Stared at with such an expression, Skylar instinctively shivered, but could only nod meekly. Yes. Good. Dad smiled and nodded. I understand. Skylar sighed in relief, thinking the matter was finally over. But then the sound of police sirens came from the doorway. Dad? Her face turned deathly pale. Marcus rose and looked down at Skylar as if she were an ant. Regarding the medication, you truly only facilitated the connection for Ethan once. Even if I personally investigated, I couldn't find anything else. But what about that car accident 2 years ago? Marcus bent down, the veins bulging in the hand that gripped Skylar's chin. You bribed the driver to intentionally cause an accident. Then you gave him a large sum of money to take his family abroad. Ethan dropped the charges, and the at-fault driver was eternally grateful, so you both thought the matter was over. But Marcus gave her a meaningful look. Not everyone is as heartless as you. I've found the driver you bribed. That year, he took a sum of money and deliberately swerved erratically, causing the accident. Although luckily survived, he's been tormented by his conscience for 2 years. Now, he's willing to return to the country and testify. Skylar. Whatever happens next, you can tell the police. Skylar and Ethan were both charged with intentional assault. The family hired the most reputable criminal defense attorney in Metropolis City to form a legal team, while the 2 accused, I heard, could only seek help through free legal aid. My attorney said Ethan wanted to see me and was convinced I would meet him. Why? I found it incredible. I asked the same thing. The attorney shrugged. He said because he's the one who loves you most. No misunderstanding, no matter how big, would make you want to end him. I laughed. But as I laughed, I found my face covered in tears. He truly had been good to me. but I wasn't sure why. Julian told me Skylar had recognized me long ago because we attended the same university, and she'd seen my literary performance, and had also come into my life after that performance. He said he fell in love with me at first sight. Now, it seemed it might have just been Skylar's orders. Ignore him, I told my attorney. Whether I'm willing to let him go or not, he'll find out during the trial, on the day of the trial. In addition to the evidence provided by the attorney, I testified myself, recounting the crazy things I once thought no one would believe, how I had wielded the knife, and how Ethan had tied me with rope. My DNA was found on all these items, leaving them powerless to resist. In the end, Skylar was sentenced to 10 years, and Ethan, by taking responsibility for administering the medication, received an additional charge of illegal trafficking of controlled substances, adding 5 more years to his sentence. Not long after, news spread that Skylar had her leg broken in prison. Moreover, her condition after being sent to the hospital was poor, and I heard she would never walk again. When I heard this news, I was holding Mom's hand, trying to walk a circle around the backyard rose garden. I instinctively looked at her expression, but she seemed not to have heard. Intently watching my legs, "Don't step too wide with your left foot," the doctor said to take it slowly. "What's wrong?" Seeing my lack of reaction, she looked up at me, her face full of confusion. "Just now." I pointed to the house manager, indicating he should repeat what he'd said. "No need." Mom interrupted me. "I know he was speaking to you, just letting you know. Nora, hear it and let it go. Unrelated people shouldn't affect your mood." Her face held disgust and a hint of cautiousness. She had always felt guilty for her previous kindness to Skylar, feeling it was like stabbing daggers into my heart. "Mom." My heart softened, and I squeezed her hand. "How about you call me Eve instead?" She looked up at me, mouth slightly agape, her eyes gradually reddening. "It sounds quite nice," I said, my cheeks warm, not daring to look at her. "It's the name you chose, and I really like it, okay?" I heard her take 2 deep breaths, then sobbed, laughing. "Tomorrow, I'll have your father change your name." I smiled and nodded, trying to release her hand and take a step forward on my own. "Eve?" I instinctively turned, meeting a pair of tear-filled eyes identical to my own. "You're finally home." I blinked my somewhat blurry eyes, struggled back, and hugged the woman in front of me. "Yes, Mom. I'm home." Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comment section.